Jax's revenge domain. I'm sorry, Lucas, but this salary is completely indefensible. That's what Ryan Foster said, pointing at my pay stub projected on a massive screen in front of 120 people. Like I was some kind of financial crime that needed solving. The name's Lucas Patterson. I'm 54 years old, and I'd just watched 18 years of my professional life get reduced to a PowerPoint slide about legacy overhead. I didn't shout, I didn't walk out. I just sat there thinking about how this kid had no idea what he'd just done. He'd broken the one rule that keeps companies alive. Never humiliate the person who built your revenue stream. If you've ever been thrown under the bus at work, you'll understand what happened next. For 18 years, I lived and breathed Summit Manufacturing Systems. When I started, we were a struggling outfit trying to make the jump from basic industrial parts to aerospace components. Nobody wanted my job because it meant dealing with the chaos of managing partnerships that stretched from major defense contractors to tiny suppliers who made the screws that hold airplane engines together. I became the guy who made it all work. Every deal, every relationship, every panicked 2 a.m. phone call from a client whose production line was about to shut down, it all came through me. I was the steady hand while Summit cycled through 5 CEOs, 3 major reorganizations, and more efficiency initiatives than I could count. My official title was Senior Director of Strategic Client Partnerships. What I actually did was keep Summit from shooting itself in the foot. I knew every client's quirks. The ones who wouldn't sign anything unless I personally walked their factory floor. The guy who would only trust me to explain why a delay wasn't going to kill his timeline. They weren't just buying parts from us. They were buying peace of mind, and I was that peace of mind. It wasn't glamorous work. Long hours, constant travel, endless spreadsheets that nobody ever thanked me for maintaining. But I took pride in watching Summit grow from a regional player into a national name. We hit $380 million in annual contracts last year. I wasn't celebrating. I was already planning next quarter's renewals. Somewhere along the way, the board forgot how those numbers came to exist. They saw charts and margins, not people. They saw cost centers, not trust. When Ryan Foster got hired as our new CFO, the congratulatory email was full of buzzwords like synergy, alignment, and strategic optimization. I'd seen this movie before. Ryan Foster was their latest savior, fresh out of a top consulting firm, famous for what they called aggressive restructuring solutions. In his first week, he announced that our compensation models were misaligned with current market benchmarks. Translation: we're spending too much on the people who actually make this place run. I recognized that tone immediately. The smug detachment of someone who thinks reality can be fixed with a spreadsheet. Numbers never scared me. I knew mine better than anyone. I knew what each client generated, the margins they carried, how my portfolio alone represented 32% of Summit's total contracts. I figured nobody could be stupid enough to mess with that. But something about Ryan's confidence bothered me. He strutted around like he already owned the place, always carrying some new chart, always rehearsing his next presentation. The guy was 38 years old and talked like he'd invented business. I told myself what every loyal employee tells themselves: stay calm, let the results speak for themselves. I had no idea my name and salary were about to become the star of his big show. Ryan Foster showed up like he was auditioning for a documentary about corporate genius. Tall, overconfident, spoke exclusively in bullet points like the world existed just to validate his slides. Within a week, he rolled out something called an operational realignment initiative. Corporate speak so vague it could mean anything. In my experience, that usually means pink slips. He made the rounds to every department, shaking hands he'd never remember and asking questions he didn't really want answered. When he stopped by my office, he wore that fake smile people use when they've already made up their minds. Lucas Patterson, right? The client whisperer. He scanned my wall of industry awards like they were evidence at a crime scene. Impressive numbers. We'll be doing some benchmarking to make sure compensation and output are properly aligned. I'd survived enough restructurings to smell a setup from a mile away. He wasn't evaluating anything. He was building a case. By his third week, rumors were flying everywhere. Mysterious spreadsheets started circulating, anonymous comparisons of salaries, performance metrics, industry averages. Someone was leaking them on purpose because suddenly everyone was measuring their worth through whispers and speculation. The whole mood changed. Conversations stopped when Ryan walked past. Every meeting became a performance where people tried to prove they deserved their jobs. I watched department heads nod along to his cost-cutting sermons, too scared to push back. When he wasn't in meetings, he was in HR requesting payroll data in the name of transparency. HR always complies when the power structure shifts. They have to. I stayed quiet and watched. My gut told me this wasn't about efficiency. It was about control. He didn't just want the numbers to balance. He wanted everyone to understand that loyalty now meant obedience to him. That Friday, he sent out his first company newsletter titled Building a Leaner Future. Lots of corporate poetry about aligning people with performance. He mentioned me without naming me. Departments with above-market compensation structures will serve as examples for operational recalibration. I knew exactly what that meant. I was about to become Exhibit A. The funny thing was, Ryan had never sat in on a single client review. He had no idea that the inefficiencies he was so eager to optimize were actually the relationships that kept our clients loyal. One of my biggest accounts once told me, "Lucas, we don't do business with Summit. We do business with you." That kind of trust doesn't show up in an Excel formula. But Ryan wasn't measuring trust. He was measuring what he could cut. It happened on a Thursday afternoon in late March. Ryan called it a quarterly leadership alignment session, which should have been my first warning. I walked into our main conference room at 3 p.m. sharp, coffee in hand, expecting another round of meaningless corporate speak. The room was packed. 120 people crammed into a space meant for 80. All the department heads, senior staff, even some of the floor supervisors. A projector screen dominated the front wall, already displaying a title slide, Operational Efficiency Through Market Alignment. Ryan stood at the front, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, practically glowing with self-importance. When he started talking, his voice had that calm, deliberate tone people use when they think they're making history. Today, he said, we're addressing a critical imbalance between compensation and contribution. Nobody breathed. He clicked to the next slide, and there it was. My name in bold letters at the top. Below it, my title, my salary, $320,000, my bonus structure, and a colorful graph comparing me to industry benchmarks. For a second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Then came the words that echoed in my head for weeks afterward. This, Ryan said, pointing at my salary figure like he was exposing fraud, is a perfect example of cost inflation at the executive level. My heart started pounding, but I kept my expression neutral. I'd learned long ago that staying calm unsettles bullies more than anger does. Around the room, eyes shifted between me and the screen. The discomfort was thick enough to cut. Oliver Martinez from operations stared down at his notepad. The VP of procurement started fidgeting with his pen. Everyone knew what this was, a public execution disguised as a business presentation. Lucas's compensation is 47% above market rate, Ryan continued, reading from his notes like a prosecutor. Market alignment suggests a salary between $185,000 and $205,000. We're currently paying $320,000. Heat crawled up my neck. 18 years of building this company, reduced to a line item that didn't fit his formula. Finally, I spoke up, keeping my voice quiet and level. Ryan, this feels like something we should discuss privately. He smiled the way people do when they think they've already won. It's not personal, Lucas. It's just business transparency. Business transparency, right. Transparency isn't putting one person's salary on a screen for 120 people to see. Transparency is admitting you don't understand what that number represents. He kept clicking, moving to a slide labeled Revised Compensation Structure. My new package appeared like a death certificate. $190,000 base pay, slashed bonus potential, no travel budget for client visits. This adjustment will bring Lucas's compensation in line with market standards, he said proudly. A few executives nodded automatically, their survival instincts kicking in. Others avoided looking at me entirely. Then something clicked in my head. The shock faded, replaced by crystal clear understanding. This wasn't about me at all. It was a warning shot to everyone else. Ryan wanted to prove he was ruthless enough to gut a veteran without hesitation. He picked me because I represented the old way of doing things. Too experienced, too expensive, too respected. And of course, he added with obvious satisfaction, this adjustment saves the company approximately $130,000 annually. He said it like he'd just rescued a sinking ship, not blown a hole in its hull. I leaned forward slightly. Just to clarify, Ryan, that $130,000 represents less than 0.1% of the revenue I personally manage. Silence rippled through the room. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The damage was done. I sat through the rest of the meeting numb. My body was there, but my mind had already left. When it ended, I walked out without saying another word. I didn't go back to my office right away. I stood in the hallway looking at framed photos of former leadership teams, guys in suits who'd come and gone, all convinced they were smarter than the people who'd actually built the place. That's when I knew something fundamental had shifted. Ryan thought he'd made an example of me. He had, just not the one he intended. When I finally got back to my office and shut the door, I sat quietly for about 10 minutes just listening to the hum of the air conditioning. 18 years of loyalty, erased in 20 minutes of corporate theater. On my desk sat a stack of client notes, handwritten thank yous, photos from plant visits, holiday cards from people I'd worked with for over a decade. Each one reminded me that my value wasn't on Ryan's spreadsheet. It lived in relationships that couldn't be measured. I opened my laptop and scrolled through my contacts. 89 clients, each one a thread in the web I'd spent 18 years building. Then I opened another folder labeled Opportunities. Buried inside was an email from 6 months earlier, Skyline Aerospace. Their CEO, Miranda Hayes, had reached out personally about a senior leadership role. She'd said she admired my approach to long-term client strategy and wanted me to consider joining their team. I'd declined out of loyalty to Summit. Reading it now, I could see the difference between loyalty and stupidity. There's a moment when humiliation stops hurting and starts sharpening your vision. Mine came at exactly 3:47 p.m. that Thursday afternoon. I drafted my resignation carefully, every word deliberate. After careful consideration of today's compensation discussion, I am resigning from Summit Manufacturing Systems effective immediately. I am grateful for the years of partnership and wish the company continued success in its efficiency initiatives. Polite, professional, final. I read it twice, then hit send to Ryan and the executive team, copying HR. The email left my outbox at 4:02 p.m., and something inside me finally relaxed. I packed quietly. Photos, one small award, a notebook of client information I'd legally compiled over the years. Nobody tried to stop me. Most people avoided eye contact. They understood the silence that follows a corporate execution. By 4:30, I was sitting in my car in the parking garage, Houston's late afternoon light filtering through the concrete. My phone buzzed before I even reached the street. "Lucas, this is Miranda Hayes. I heard what happened today. Please tell me it's not true." "It's true," I said. "They called it market alignment." She was quiet for a moment. "Then let's make sure you never hear that phrase again. Can you come in Monday morning?" I didn't hesitate. "I'll be there at 9 o'clock. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my resignation email still open on the laptop screen. I didn't feel defeated. I felt detached, like watching the final scene of a movie I'd already outgrown. They thought they'd cut costs. They'd actually severed the main artery feeding their business. I didn't plan any kind of revenge that night. I didn't need to. In industries built on trust, betrayal has a way of executing itself. By the time I got home that Friday evening, word of my resignation had already spread through Summit faster than any official announcement. My phone started lighting up immediately. The first call was from Quinn Thompson, Summit's VP of Contracts. "Lucas, did you really resign? Ryan's acting like it's no big deal. Please tell me he's wrong about that." I didn't respond to Quinn. The second call came 20 minutes later from a client, Parker Williams at Anderson Aerotech, one of our biggest accounts. "Lucas," Parker's voice was tight with concern, "I heard you're no longer with Summit. Is that actually true?" "Yes, Parker. I resigned this afternoon." There was a long silence, then a sigh that carried 12 years of working together. "We've been doing business with you, not the company. If you're gone, I honestly don't see how we stay." I reminded him gently that I couldn't solicit clients under my contract terms. He let out a bitter laugh. "You don't have to solicit anyone, Lucas. I already know where I want to take my business." That call ended with a promise I hadn't asked for. It was just the beginning. Within 2 hours, I had 8 more calls. all variations of the same conversation. These weren't just business contacts, they were people who'd shared factory floors, last-minute crises, and after-hours problem-solving sessions with me for years. By midnight, I had 23 unread voicemails, all from clients asking for confirmation of my departure, many already hinting at pulling their contracts. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. Their reaction told me everything about where the real loyalty lived. Saturday morning, I drove to a coffee shop and opened my laptop. News travels fast in manufacturing circles, and the whispers had already reached the industry forums. Senior Director Lucas Patterson resigns from Summit after compensation dispute, read one post. The comments were brutal. Cost-cutting gone wrong, someone wrote. They just handed their future to the competition, added another. I smiled at how accurate that was. Ryan's efficiency initiative was already becoming public perception. Sunday, I posted something simple and factual on LinkedIn. Grateful for 18 years of learning and growth at Summit Manufacturing Systems. Excited for new opportunities in aerospace partnerships. Within hours, it exploded. Colleagues commented, clients messaged, recruiters reached out. Some responses were subtle shows of support. Others openly called Summit's decision corporate suicide. That night, Miranda Hayes texted me. They're in panic mode. We've already had 4 Summit clients reach out about transferring their contracts. I stared at the message and realized the revenge had already started, without me lifting a finger. Monday morning arrived like a storm front. My phone buzzed constantly with texts, missed calls, and emails. One of them was from Ryan himself. Lucas, we need to talk immediately. Clients are reaching out with concerns. Please respond ASAP. I didn't. I was already sitting in Miranda's office at Skyline Aerospace, signing paperwork for my new role as Chief Strategy Officer. Miranda slid the contract toward me, her expression split between amusement and disbelief. You've caused quite an earthquake, Lucas. Summit's board called an emergency meeting this morning. I signed with a steady hand. I didn't cause anything, Miranda. They did. That afternoon, screenshots started arriving from former colleagues. Formal contract termination notices from Summit's biggest clients. Each one cited relationship discontinuity as the reason. 7 by noon, 11 by evening. Each one represented millions in annual revenue. Summit's phones must have been ringing off the hook. That night, Ryan called again. His voicemail was shorter this time. If you're deliberately coordinating this exodus, we'll pursue legal action. I listened twice, then deleted it. I hadn't broken a single rule. I hadn't called anyone, sent any emails, or encouraged anything. I'd simply left, and the clients had chosen who they trusted. Trust, it turns out, doesn't recognize non-compete clauses. By the end of that first day, Summit's cost alignment had turned into a client hemorrhage worth over $120 million, and that was just day one. By Tuesday morning, the damage was visible in numbers that made Ryan's salary charts look like pocket change. Summit had lost nearly $180 million in contracts within 48 hours. I didn't need insider confirmation. Former colleagues kept sending updates in shock and disbelief. It's complete chaos here, one message read. They've formed a crisis task force. I imagined Ryan pacing that same conference room where he'd called me overpaid, still clutching his slides while the company bled revenue faster than he could explain it. At Skyline, my onboarding was smooth and purposeful. Miranda skipped the usual corporate speeches. We'll focus on stabilizing relationships first, she said, handing me a list of companies that had reached out on their own. Most of the names were familiar. Anderson Aerotech, Precision Components, Crown Systems, all former Summit partners. Each contract represented years of trust built over time, not quarters. When I called them back, they didn't need any convincing. Lucas, we just want to work with people who know what they're doing, one CEO told me straight up. You've never let us down. I didn't celebrate. I went straight to work. Within a week, my small team had secured commitments from 14 companies, totaling nearly $200 million in new business. Skyline's leadership was stunned. I wasn't surprised. This is what happens when loyalty has a face and a track record. Meanwhile, the headlines spread beyond industry circles. Summit Manufacturing faces client retention crisis following executive departure. The articles quoted unnamed sources describing panic and collapsing client confidence. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ryan had wanted transparency. He was getting it, just not the kind he could manage. By week's end, the numbers spoke for themselves. 19 major contracts gone, operations scrambling, emergency layoffs being planned. I didn't comment publicly. I didn't post anything. I let silence do the work. The louder Ryan tried to defend his decision in interviews, the worse it sounded. "We're undergoing strategic optimization," he said in one broadcast, his voice tight with stress. The market heard collapse. From Miranda's office at Skyline, we watched the interview together. She shook her head slowly. "He still doesn't get it, does he?" "No," I said. "He thinks revenue follows titles and org charts. It follows trust." The next Monday, a formal letter arrived from Summit's legal department, accusing me of violating my non-compete through indirect client influence. I actually laughed. My lawyer responded with one sentence: "Our client has not solicited anyone. Summit's former clients appear to have made independent business decisions based on their own assessment of service quality." That ended the legal threats. Ryan called me directly later that day. His voice had completely changed. No arrogance, no performance, just raw fear. "Lucas, please, we need your help transitioning these accounts. We're losing control of the situation." I answered calmly. "Ryan, you made it very clear that I was overpaid for what I do. I'm sure whoever you hire at market rate can handle it just fine." He tried reasoning, emotion, guilt, everything except accountability. But there was nothing left to save. The company that had reduced me to a budget line item was now watching its bottom line evaporate. By quarter's end, Summit's revenue was down 43%. Massive layoffs followed. Entire teams were dismantled to absorb the financial damage. Ryan disappeared from public view after the board voted him out in an emergency session. When that news broke, I felt no triumph, just a quiet sense of completion. I hadn't sabotaged anything or anyone. I'd simply walked away, and the absence of what I'd built over 18 years did the rest. That's the cleanest kind of justice there is. Summit didn't survive the year. 4 months after Ryan's presentation, the company was quietly acquired by a competitor at less than half its previous valuation. The official statement blamed unexpected market conditions, but everyone in the industry knew the real story. When you humiliate the person who holds your key relationships together, you don't just lose talent, you lose trust. And in business, trust is everything. I didn't watch their downfall with satisfaction. It felt like observing a slow-motion car crash I'd already escaped. By then, I was settled in at Skyline with an office overlooking downtown Houston, leading a team that understood what real partnership meant. The irony was perfect. Summit had tried to save $130,000 by cutting my salary. They ended up losing hundreds of millions trying to prove that loyalty could be replaced by spreadsheet analysis. Skyline flourished. Within 6 months, I'd rebuilt a client portfolio stronger than the one I'd left behind. 37 companies, many of them former Summit partners who'd moved purely on trust that working with me meant stability and results. Miranda gave me complete autonomy, trusting the instincts that Summit had dismissed as legacy thinking. It wasn't legacy thinking. It was relationship-based business in an industry where one missed shipment can cost millions. The first time I walked into a client review meeting at Skyline, one of the executives smiled and said, "Good to have you back, Lucas. It feels like we're dealing with adults again." That meant more to me than any performance review I'd ever received. Over the next year, Skyline's growth rate doubled. We hit milestones that Summit had labeled impossible. Then, 16 months after my resignation, Harvard Business Review published a case study titled "The $130,000 Cost Cut That Destroyed $250 million in Revenue." It used Summit as a cautionary tale about how market alignment thinking can destroy relationship-driven businesses. My name wasn't in the headline, but it didn't need to be. Everyone who mattered already knew the story. I keep a framed copy of that article on my desk today, not out of pride, but as a reminder of what arrogance costs. I also kept one other memento from my Summit years, a photo of that conference room screen with my salary projected in red letters. It hangs next to my Skyline Leadership Award. Every time I look at it, I remember the silence in that room, the stares, the humiliation. Then I remember what followed. The phone calls, the client loyalty, the quiet justice that didn't require a single word of retaliation. Sometimes power isn't loud or dramatic, it's patient, quiet, and absolute. People ask me now what I learned from the whole experience. I tell them this: if a company ever calls you overpaid, don't argue with them. Don't fight the decision. Just let them discover what your absence actually costs. Because eventually the same people who undervalued you will end up writing their own downfall into a business school lesson they paid dearly to teach. When I look back at what happened at Summit, it wasn't just workplace drama. It was a lesson about value, dignity, and the power of silence. For years, I thought loyalty was its own reward, that if I worked hard enough and delivered consistent results, people would naturally recognize my worth. But it took public humiliation for me to understand something essential. You can't remain loyal to people who treat your commitment like a discount. When Ryan called me overpaid, I realized that some leaders confuse cost with value, and staying quiet in the wrong place isn't professionalism. It's surrender. Walking away wasn't about revenge at first. It was about reclaiming what was mine: my self-respect, my expertise, my peace of mind. But life has a way of balancing the scales without you having to tip them yourself. When Summit collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance, it wasn't my victory, it was their education. I didn't destroy them. They did that the moment they mistook a person for an expense line. The real win wasn't the contracts that followed me to Skyline. It was waking up every morning without resentment, knowing I didn't have to shout to be heard or fight to be valued. Never stay where your worth has to be defended more than it's recognized. The people meant to be in your life will never make you beg them to see your value. They'll simply know it, respect it, and protect it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and let your absence speak louder than any argument ever could. Trust me on this one. I learned it the expensive way, but it was worth every penny they thought they were saving. In the end, I learned that respect isn't something you can demand or negotiate. It's something you command by knowing when to stay and when to walk away. The most expensive lesson Ryan ever taught me was free. Sometimes your greatest power lies not in what you do, but in what you refuse to tolerate.